pre that 2023 Ashes, I didn't know whether I'd probably get back in and maybe play another Test match. You kind of have those sort of thoughts where you never know, like, I just might not get another go. You never know, sort of thing. So to come back in at that stage of the series, be a part of a winning partnership at the end of the Test match to hit the winning runs was, pretty amazing feeling. Like, sort of that euphoric sort of feeling that you probably wouldn't get.
When you see this first picture, but I want you to tell me.
Oh wow, it's one of the worst. It's probably my worst, actually. You've picked my worst photo.
It's not bad at all.
Bloody hell.
Look at that innocent.
I obviously didn't think it was bad at the time. I obviously thought it was good.
Is this specifically the ear bling?
Yeah, the bling, the spider fringe, how long it is on the sides, spotty teenager. Oh, yeah. But we all go through those phases, don't we?
When was that? Do you remember about what age and what you were doing in cricket?
15, 16, 17 maybe. That sort of, I feel it was academy days, because I remember that jacket being the academy sort of jacket. So I remember that. So around about 16, 17, I'd imagine. The
ear bling, how long did you have that for?
The earring, how long did I have it? I reckon I had it done when I was about 15. And I reckon it lasted till I was about 18, I reckon. Or just shy of 18 maybe. So a good few years. Yeah, but I obviously thought it was the in thing to do at the time, and thought I was cool. Obviously, clearly, but
I think you should bring it back.
Nah, I'm not sure. No, as I said there, I don't think my wife would appreciate that. In fact, it may have been the reason, because I've been with Amy for a hell of a long time. I think it might have been the reason why I got rid of it, because she wasn't overly happy with it. So.
What kind of a kid were you?
I mean, I'm just trying to remember. I can't really remember, but like quite shy, quite timid, I reckon. Until probably I got to get to that age, don't you, where around probably 17, 18, where you kind of figure yourself out a little bit, probably be a little bit more adventurous. I reckon I was more of a follower, than a leader, should we say. Until I was probably more comfortable in my own sort of skin, and then just kind of was like happy being me.
Growing up in Birmingham and playing cricket, what was your childhood like, and did cricket play a big part in it very early, or did you come to it a bit later?
Cricket was always a part of life, I reckon, probably from as young as 6, 7. That's when I probably first, got a bat in my hand and got a ball in my hand and played in the back garden, with my dad. I had 2 older half brothers who were into sport quite a bit. So kind of that, having that relationship as well, kind of pushed me down the sporting route as well. Watched them play club cricket, club football. So it was kind of like just the kind of thing to do, sort of thing. Played a lot with my dad and mum in the garden. And yeah, so I suppose it was kind of not forced, but kind of it was just part of what I did. I enjoyed it from a young age, so I kind of just went with it. And any sport involving a ball was kind of what I wanted to do. I was always happy with the ball in my hand. So
you've mentioned football in there, and there's actually a picture I think is really lovely.
Great picture. Yeah, it's one of my good memories with Dad. Yeah, I mean, the reason I got into supporting Aston Villa in the first place was through my dad, really. He kind of supported Villa all his life, and then obviously when I came along, I was kind of probably more pushed into supporting Aston Villa than I was to play cricket or play football. It was like, right, you're supporting Aston Villa. And yeah, my earliest memories of Aston Villa was like when I was like 4 or 5, winning the League Cup in '94, then '96. And Dad was a big part of that, and then obviously getting to go to games with him was pretty special as well. So yeah, Villa's obviously a big part of my life as well. It kind of gets me away from cricket, something which I like to focus on. And yeah, just football's, I love football, so, and Aston Villa's my probably one passion, other than obviously playing cricket and playing football. It was supporting Aston Villa.
Tell us about this picture with Jack Greeley.
I just got a contact through, I think it was BBC Sport, I think at the time. They were keen to do an interview and try and get me to kind of interview Jack. And I had no experience of interviewing someone, let alone obviously interviewing someone who I looked up to as kind of a bit of an idol, I suppose, at the time. Was a big player for Aston Villa, loved the way he played the game, obviously big Villa fan. So getting to kind of sit down and chew the fat with him and then obviously do some stuff for this interview was pretty cool experience actually. And getting to meet a guy who was, also a down-to-earth guy, Brummy, I suppose in a way could have probably had similar upbringings. Obviously he went down the football route, I went down the cricket route, but it was a cool experience to get to know him as a person, not just talk to him about football.
Were you starstruck?
I would say I was nervous kind of meeting him, like thinking, God, I've got to interview kind of one of Villa's biggest ever players, and he was huge at the time obviously in terms of a Villa player. I wouldn't go as far as starstruck, but definitely there was nerves to meet him. But once I met him, he was so easygoing and actually was really open to our conversation. It wasn't like a quick 5-minute chat. We were there for probably an hour or so, just chatting and stuff. So it was pretty cool.
So after you finish playing, do you want my job?
I'm not sure I'm quite as good as you, Melinda. I'm not as good as you. Some practice needed.
Another one that I wanted to bring up, this is a great photo of you.
So I remember that was my England Lions debut at Derby, playing against West Indies team who were obviously due to tour and play against England. And the game went pretty well. I remember taking a fair few wickets and just a great experience, I suppose, to obviously wear the England whites probably for the first time. I can't remember the year, to be honest. Do you know the year of that?
Yes, I do. I can tell you. It's 2009.
2009, yeah. So obviously before I'd made an official England debut, so it felt pretty cool to be a part of an England sort of setup, playing against some big players, Shivnarine Chanderpaul, I think Tino Best may have been around that sort of time. So some big players, playing against them.
This photo is also from 2009.
Same year, yeah.
Same year, and getting Trescothick out.
Getting Marcus Trescothick out, which was he was such a, I remember watching cricket growing up and he was such a big part of that England team. World-class player, loved watching him bat, and then before you know it, you're playing against these guys. It's quite a, I suppose you're nervous at the time to be thinking, God, I'm bowling at Marcus Trescothick, but it was, amazing to obviously get his wicket. I remember it well. It was caught gully, I think, on the drive, and at that time in particular, it was one of my biggest scalps. So good, nice moment.
How much does Birmingham and Warwickshire mean to you? Whenever
I think of Birmingham and Warwickshire in particular, it kind of it's just a home. That's the first thing that kind of comes to mind, and feels like a family and kind of puts me at ease. I mean, I love Birmingham. I'll talk Birmingham up to the hill, but. Some people don't agree with me, which is fair enough. Everyone has their opinion of Birmingham, but being a local lad that's kind of grew up, I grew up in Great Bar, which is only 4 or 5 miles out of town. It just feels like that's I always feel comfortable there. It's kind of where I see myself being forever, kind of thing. You never say forever, do you? But I see it as home. It always feel like whenever I go away, coming back to Birmingham is home. It's where I feel most comfortable. I've got a lot of friends there, and I've played all my county cricket at Warwickshire. I don't intend to ever leave, ideally. And that feels where I'm most comfortable, where I've enjoyed so many good memories, both on and off the field. So many people that I've worked with for my whole career are still there. It's an amazing place. I love it. Obviously, very biased view, but it's probably up there with my most favourite place in the world. You've won World Cups. You've kind of done so many things in the game. There's one moment for me that stands out as the sports Hollywood movie kind of moment, and it's that moment there. The winning runs at Headingley. 2023 Ashes Test match, yeah. An amazing moment, really. It was an incredible feeling, I suppose, to be out there and help him finish a game for England. Obviously, I think it had a bit of an extra meaning. Obviously, we're 2-0 down in the series. Such a huge Test match, obviously have to win to kind of keep the series alive, to try and win the Ashes back. Hadn't played the first 2 Test matches, so it felt like a big moment. And kind of, I look back on it and think, pre that 2023 Ashes, I didn't know whether I'd probably get back in and maybe play another Test match. You kind of have those sort of thoughts where you never know. you know, I just might not get another go. You never know, sort of thing. So to come back in at that stage of the series, you know, be a part of a winning partnership at the end of the Test match to hit the winning runs was, you know, pretty amazing feeling. Like, you know, sort of that euphoric sort of feeling that you probably wouldn't get, you know. Not saying playing any other game, but obviously we know how much England, Australia, you know, means. Obviously, thankfully I've been there at the end of other Test matches where we've won, but, you know, doing it against Australia, you know, home series, pretty amazing. Obviously with Mark Wood at the other end as well, a good friend of mine. It was a pretty amazing experience. That's probably the best way to sum it up.
What was the first thing he said to you?
What, when he ran down to me?
Yeah.
I can't remember. He was just giddy. He was like a little boy, you know. You know, we know what Woody's like. He's always a bundle of excitement and joy and craziness. But he was just jumping up and down and kind of grabbed me. I can't even remember exactly what he said, but it would be something along the lines of "you effing beauty" or something like that. But yeah, something like that. I can't exactly remember, to be honest with you. You know, you kind of try and take it all in, but it's almost impossible to do that.
The other thing that's amazing about that picture is it's like the echo of 4 years earlier at Headingley, Ben Stokes, arms outstretched. Do you ever think that?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I don't, by no means did I play a similar role to the way Ben did that day in 2019. You know, that the way he played for that innings goes down in you know, in the history books. That's just like, you know, one of the great innings that's ever lived. So by no means do I, you know, put that in the same sort of bracket. But I did say, I remember doing an interview post game and thinking, you know, I kind of got a small sort of feeling as to how he must have felt in 2019 on a much sort of lower scale. You know, obviously I wasn't 140 not out or whatever he was. But yeah, still an amazing sort of feeling to obviously do that in an Ashes Test match, and yeah, it was an incredible, you know, moment in the series, wasn't it? Obviously being 2-0 down to win that game was huge.
So if you could go back in time to the little scruffy kid running around Birmingham with a bad haircut and an earring, if you could give him a piece of advice, knowing what you now know about the various ups and downs of your career and life, what piece of advice would you give him?
It's a tough question, because you look back. I look back then and would kind of, you know, what I've achieved in the game. You know, I never thought would have been possible. You know, at that moment in time, all I wanted to do was to play a game for Warwickshire, you know, be a professional cricketer sort of thing, you know, especially at that sort of teenage years when you're on the academy at Warwickshire and you know, you're working hard at your game. You know, it then becomes a reality like, oh, maybe I, you know, could become a professional cricketer, and you just kind of focus on that sort of sole goal. You never really look at the, you know, the peak of the mountain, which, you know, obviously is winning World Cups, you know, playing for England, having an England career, that sort of thing. You know, you never really allow yourself to go that far, I don't think. You know, I certainly didn't. I was kind of just focused on Warwickshire and what was possible there. So I think the advice I would give back to that young boy or young lad would be just to kind of try and enjoy the ride, you know, still try and maintain that love for the game. Because that's what kind of, I think, gets you up in the morning and wants you to improve, wants you to win, you know, games of cricket for your team. I think, you know, as soon as you kind of become a bit internal and just think about yourself, it kind of, it takes you away from that, I think. And I certainly just kind of try and enjoy the ride, enjoy the moments with the team, try and improve every day. And also try not to take things too serious. I think that would always, you know, I look back at the early part of my career when I kind of started playing for England, and I probably took myself too serious, but kind of just got uptight about performance, constantly looking for perfection sort of thing. But I think the one thing that I've always tried to maintain throughout my career is to try and improve and never sort of stand still as a player, and that's something which I still try and, you know, do now as a 35-year-old. So I suppose that has kind of stayed or rung true. But yeah, I don't think I'd probably give any other advice other than that, to be honest. Would just certainly to be enjoy the ride.
How do you feel about your life and your career right now at this moment of time, sitting here in South Africa?
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously delighted with, you know, my career. I still feel like I've got a lot to give the game. I still feel like I've got a lot to achieve. You know, I still have aspirations to continue playing for England. So, you know, from that side of things don't really change. But I think I'm just, you know, as I just mentioned there, I'm kind of happy, still trying to improve my game, still try to get better. And whichever environment I'm going into, obviously the game's changed a hell of a lot in probably the 20 years I've pretty much been playing it. But whatever team you come into, you want to have like a positive impact. You want to have a positive influence, you know, whether that be on the field or off the field. And then also you want to, you know, contribute to winning teams. So, you know, from that side of things, nothing ever changes. Hi, I'm Chris Woakes, and now I'm a Durban supergiant.